Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now, for those of you that saw our interview with Adam Wilkins last time out, you will know that he has sold Complete Kit Car, but it's all for the good. Jack Wood, who has been working for the magazine for the last few years, is taking over, and I'm really pleased to say we've got Jack here to tell us what's going on with the magazine and tell us how he got to this position. Welcome, Jack.
Hi, no, thanks for having me, guys. I've really been looking forward to this. Sorry, I've had to put you off, but it's been a busy few weeks. So here
I
we
can
are.
imagine, because taking over a business is probably not a small step, is it?
No, especially someone that's been salaried all his life. I can barely remember GCSE business studies, but I don't think it's put me in good stead for this. So we'll see.
Well, funny you mentioned back your school days. Let's rewind a little bit. How have you got to sort of the point where you were in the position to take over CKC?
Well, I've actually been thinking about this quite a bit, but really, I've always wanted to do stuff with cars. So back when I was about 8 years old, there was a game that came out for the original PlayStation called Gran Turismo. I'd never really been interested in cars before then. I was just into video games and just messing around and stuff like that. And the thing that was cool about Gran Turismo is it gave you a budget of 10,000 credits to go out, buy a car, and tune it up, and then you'd complete the game. You'd have like a whole collection of cars. But what was weird about it, because it was a Japanese game, is a lot of the cars were what we know now as JDM, Japanese domestic market products, and I got really into the weird stuff like the Suzuki Cappuccino. I mean, we did get the Cappuccino over here, but cars like that. And it sort of became an obsession. And that obsession sort of got me into British cars, classic cars. TVR were always a big part of the Gran Turismo games. And I sort of fell in love with British fiberglass and stuff like that. And then it was only a short steps. Obviously, TVR started out as a kit car manufacturer, so did Lotus. And yeah. But yeah, so I sort of really got into kit cars and just cars in general. And I was like, I want to do something with cars, and I'd have loved to have become an engineer. In fact, that's where I was sort of pushed, but I never really had. I was always sort of pretty good at like English and history, but I was never amazing at maths and physics. But for some reason, school sort of pushed me, and I did a mechanical engineering degree that I did okay at, but I left university and I was thinking, I'm not going to get the JCB or the Land Rover sort of work that you want to get at the end of that. And I was sort of thinking, do I want to do this or do I want to do something else? So I became a lab technician for a year just to sort of work out what I wanted to do with my life. And then I came into a little bit of money, like enough to take 6 months off of work. And I'd always read magazines, car blogs. And I set my own one up, and looking back, it wasn't particularly good. But when the position came up for to work for performance publishing on Complete Kit Car and the then new Absolute X magazine, I just applied for it. And then Adam sort of looked at the blog, and I think he saw that, yeah, it's this guy sort of knows what he's on about, and he's, this someone I can sort of mold into whatever that could work with the magazine. And then a few months passed. I didn't think I got it, but I sent an email back to him to say, oh, just out of interest, sort of, why not me, sort of thing. And it just got to the point where I'd actually not hired anyone yet. And then he asked if I wanted to come to a track day at Castle Combe. And then, yeah, he basically said, do you want to do it? And at the time I was living in Manchester, which was a 2.5-hour drive from the Grantham offices. But I still just made it work. Like, it didn't really work financially. It'd probably have been better at that point just to stay blogging, but I just had to do it. It's actually quite funny when he was on about, oh, he owned a Midas, and you mentioned, oh, come into the office of the Midas. I actually tried to do that. It made it 10 miles out of Manchester before the RAC had to move it on a low load, and I actually came down. I had a 1992 Mercedes Coupe. I don't know how I afforded that car at the time, but I did, and that's actually the car I showed up in. But yeah, as readers probably know, the Midas has always sort of been around, but not really around, because it's never really worked properly. But yeah, that's how I got into it.
But if you were, how kit car is that to break down on the way to the interview? But what better than to come up with a classic Mercedes to roll up with it? Anyway, so you better than any CV that you could have put on the desk.
Yes, yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I was surprised the Mercedes made it. It came very close to being my mum's Fiat Panda, I think. But yeah, no, we made it in the Mercedes. But yeah, it was a good interview. And yeah, that's 5.5 years ago, or 5 years ago, and yeah, been at CKC and Absolute Lotus ever since.
So talk us through your role on the CKC side of what you've done at the magazine while you've been there up to now.
Well, Adam's always been really, really good, where it's like he's always been the editor and he's always run the company, but I've always felt like I've had input. And I think it was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, we sort of gave the magazine like a little sort of facelift. And we sort of came up, a lot of some of the new ideas came from me, and I sort of did, I don't know if people who read the magazine, we have like a bit, it's not actually called classic news in the magazine, but we had like a section to do with sort of classic kit cars and stuff like that. And and that's something I want to do going forwards as well, is not just to be a industry completely focused, like the industry is always going to be the biggest part of the magazine, but I sort of want to give the classic kit cars that I'm also interested in a bit of a push too, because I feel they get short shrift from like the mainstream classic car magazines. You know, if it's not a proper production car, it's not worth going in, but there's so many interesting classic kit cars, and contrary to popular belief, they're not all terrible. So but yeah, so I've always sort of had control of the features I've done, and I've always had a lot of input. So it's magazine content wise, it's not massively different. I've just got the fun bits of distribution, emails from the printers, stuff like that. But yeah, I've always had like a hand, you know, my hand's always been there, sort of thing, with CKC for the past 4 years at least, really.
Okay, so you're sort of moving along with CKC. You're coming up with all these new ideas. It's all going swimmingly well. You're in a nice salaried job, and then what changed? How did it all come about?
What, the purchasing company car? Well, yeah. So since COVID, with me, the way sort of it's worked with me and Adam at least is I've been working from home most of the time, but then I'd come in to do proofing and just a few other bits. We'd have like a regular meeting to make sure everything's sort of try and get a plan together. But then I got a phone call on one of my work from home weeks to say, I need you to come in on Monday. And as soon as just after he said that, he went, it's not bad news, but I can't tell you what it is over the phone, which my brain instantly goes, okay, this is bad news. What's coming my way, sort of thing. And it was pretty difficult to sleep on the Saturday and the Sunday. And then I was driving down to Grantham on the Monday, and I was going through my head, like, what conversation was going to come up. I had no idea what conversation was going to come up. And then he sort of came out with it saying, I want to focus on Absolute Lotus magazine. I still want to be a part of CKC, but I'd sort of like to move it on so each magazine has its own focus, which is something both magazines have needed. So he sort of said, would you like to take it on? I had about a month to decide. Well, I said I wanted a month to decide, and he's pretty easygoing, so he was okay with that. And I left the office mostly thinking, do I really want to pay for my old job? And it's going to be a lot of work to set up my own publishing company, basically. But by the time I'd got back to Sheffield, I was sort of thinking, I don't think there's anything else I'd rather do, at least right now. And yeah, and like Adam said in the previous video, like I love Absolute Lotus. I love most classic cars, and cars as a subject, there's barely anything I find more interesting. But yeah, CKC has always been the magazine I've liked the most. I just love the variety, either from history or even now. If you just look at the industry, if you go from Ultima to beach buggies, like Kingfisher Customs and even though to the like outsiders, there's a lot of 7S roadsters, cars that like the Caterham 7 and stuff like that. But even they have their own, differences, and they're all their own car, and I just love that. So if you look through, so that's the other thing. Would I move to another magazine? But if you go to any sort of classic car sort of standard publication and you look at their back issues for the past 2 or 3 years, you're going to see 3 or 4 Jaguar E-types. You're going to see quite a few Mark 1 Escorts, RS200s, whatever, like that sort of thing. And Complete Kit Car is such a unique magazine in the fact that, every issue is just completely different. Whether it might be a 3-wheeler that someone's made themselves, like a special out of bits, or a super focused track car, and I just love that. So,
and you've got the other thing I would imagine, and you touched on it with talking about classic kit cars. You've got such a fantastic back catalogue, which we can come on to talk about sort of the industry as as it is today. But you go the back catalogue, the number of manufacturers that have been over the years and cars, good and bad, that have come over the years. You've got such an area you could, or different areas you could focus on. You've got sort of material that could keep you going for decades.
Oh yeah, no, there's no danger, and there's some good stuff in the pipeline. I know that. I mean, in fact, if we include the issues, I mean, the October issue's out now, and then November issue is my first issue. But actually, if we go all the way up to December, we'll have a brand new kit car model in each one of those magazines, which is just crazy. Like, it's just insane how productive these manufacturers we have are now, and that's before you even get into the classics. And yeah, admittedly, there's some classics that where their merit is just how odd they are and sort of how did that get onto the road. But the majority they're all interesting, and the majority are quite good. Or maybe not the majority, but actually, I would say the majority are interesting. And it's also amazing how many people like the Gordon Murrays and the Peter Stevens have dipped their toe into the kit car industry because they wanted to do something fun that they wanted to do. And that's what I like about the manufacturers we have. You don't get a sense they're doing it for purely business reasons, because there's way easier ways of making money with the sort of engineering knowledge they have. They do it because they want to do it more than anything. Well, that's what I take from it. So,
and the other thing, just to take back a step, and I think I touched on it with Adam, is you had a fairly manic deadline schedule going on when you were all working on Absolute Lotus, Complete Kit Car, and alternative cars, which we mentioned in the last video has been sort of parked for a few months. It must have been absolutely crazy, and they must have taken pressure off both of you. That, you know, on Adam's side is Absolute Lotus, your side it's CKC, and you've only got 12 or 13 issues a year for yourself to worry about.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I'm still like Adam's still going to be doing some stuff for Complete Kit Car, like quite a bit of stuff. Because I'd be stupid to not use him. But I'll still be doing stuff with the Lotus mags. But yes, it's good to. Yeah, I'm purely focused on CKC, and whatever extra stuff I do is extra stuff. Because yeah, it was get to the point where it became, and there'll always be an element of this because we have the British weather and time to put up with, and photo shoots are often difficult when your main subject matters are classic Lotuses and kit cars, in the sense that will the car make it to the day? But it became too much of what is possible as opposed to what we want to do, and it's going to be quite good for both magazines to have what do we want to do and what is possible as opposed to just what is possible. But I don't think we ever put out a bad issue, but there was a few moments where deadlines were getting incredibly tight, and it was just a lot of stress for everybody. And we annoyed, people like the printers and designers and stuff. Maybe not annoyed, but yeah, we were pushing everyone's deadlines on, and it was just not a fun situation to be in. Office side, it's always a fun. Photo shoots are always fun, but the office side wasn't much fun for the past year. I wouldn't say so.
And the other thing is, if you're taking that pressure off yourself to an extent, that'll allow you presumably to be more creative and have more time to come up with the articles that you want to do.
Yeah, and the thing is me and Adam always had plans and of stuff we wanted to do anyway. So it'd be quite good to revisit those lists because they still exist. They're still on our computers. But yeah, I'd like to do more fun stuff. I think for the time being, the magazine's going to look. There's a few changes in the next issue, but it's nothing major. I think it's sort of keep the issues coming out. But I think next year, I'd like to do some big things, or at least a big thing, and then lots of fun things that are fun for me and also the reader.
And so we're talking sort of evolution rather than revolution.
Yeah, I mean, the magazine has a core fan base, and there's people that have stuck with us. And in fact, if you go through the subscriber list, quite a lot of readers have been around since since the magazine started, sort of thing. Like there's a lot of people that have never lapsed the subscription. And and also if you go back to the old witch kits and stuff, which I've got a whole bloody unit full of now, and CKCs and stuff, it's the DNA of the old mags is still there, and I don't want to lose that. But having Adam around and stuff like that will keep that too, sort of thing. And also I learned from Adam learned from Ian, and and so forth. So Peter Phil, and obviously Peter Philby as well, and then Ian learned from Peter. So yeah, I don't think it's never going to be unrecognizable, but I just like to get I'd like a few big features at least a year, sort of thing.
Put your own stamp on it.
Yeah, well, yeah, or just even if you go back to some of the older issues, like I don't want to promise this, but I'd love to go back to when we have an in-house build, an in-house kit car project, and the old road trips they used to do and stuff like that. I'd love to bring that back. But then, yeah, I would like to put my own stamp on it too. But it's just more just going, yeah, just a few more of the epic features as well, sort of thing.
And just to reassure all the readers, that despite the fact there's a new name on the front page of the magazine, everything else stays absolutely the same. Subscribers, it'll all carry on as it has done, and you'll be in the same shops and digital subscriptions, all that. Everything stays the same.
Everything stays the same. I mean, the team are exactly the same. It's just one of the members is now freelance instead of being editor. But yeah, the whole I'd be stupid to change that, and I wouldn't want to change that because we all have a good working relationship, and everything is a-okay and pretty similar. It's just hopefully, well, no, the magazine will get just more of a focus going forwards.
So that brings us right up to the modern day. Let's do a little bit of a rewind. Tell us, some of the stories and some of your thoughts of your time so far at CKC, maybe some of the interesting cars that you've seen, and maybe then we can sort of go on to your thoughts on the industry as it is at the moment.
Well, like I was saying before, like I love how varied the industry is. I think recently there was like a week where in the same week I went to see an Ultima RS, I went to see the new Kingfisher Customs buggy, and I went to see a new freewheel. Like I love that, and they've all brilliant on their own merit. But I think the industry is in a really exciting place, even though people keep coming up, oh, it's not as big as it used to be and stuff like that. But like all the products are genuinely good on their own merit. And there's some interesting stuff going out of there. And just speaking about my time, I remember the first time I went to see Stuart Much and Sylvia at MEV, and it was just to go and just do like what we used to call talking shop. I used to do an interview with a manufacturer. And I got around there and I saw in the corner of the workshop there was a Mazda RX-8 just sitting there, and I sort of went, oh, what's that all about? And he sort of started to get like that and stuff like that, and then eventually sort of said, well, this sort of goes nowhere, but we're sort of umming and ahhing about developing an RX-8 version of the Exocet, and obviously that car came out last year, and that was really fun to see, sort of just seeing that actually, yeah, they went out and did it, so there's always the danger of saying, oh, I'm going to do this thing, that it just gets pushed by the wayside. But I think everyone in the industry is so proactive that there's no real danger of that in the kit car scene. And yeah, it was quite cool to see that, because that was a cover car not so long ago. But it's finally out, sort of thing.
Yeah. But I think that the way the industry is what suits the market, because I think there's one major factor is people go, oh, kits are so expensive. Well, things do go up over time, but the customer expectation has changed tremendously from the days of the likes of Dutton or Robin Hood, putting out hundreds of kits in a weekend. People are expecting a lot more quality nowadays, and I think the phrase that gets used quite a lot is people expect them to click together like a Tamiya kit, rather than back in the day where I always remember I had a Dutton once, and I was speaking to one of the Dutton owners, and they said, the thing you've got to remember about Duttons is you build them. Cars like Westfields and Caterhams, you assemble them. And I think we've moved away from the build element very much to the assemble, and that's what customers are expecting. And I think the industry's had to lift its level to suit that.
No, exactly. There's not a kit car that I can think of particularly that I wouldn't dare go out and build myself, sort of thing. But if you look back to the older kit cars where they only had to go through an MOT and you'd have to, change the logbook, I don't think I'd dare touch one of those, really. And it's actually it's quite sad, but sometimes when I was in the office at Grantham, we'd get a phone call and someone would say, oh, I bought this Jaguar E-Type replica, but I've tried to take it in for an MOT, but apparently it's registered as a Jaguar XJ6. And then you go into the whole, well, you've actually made a big error there, sort of thing, and mention the IVN and go, oh, will that be difficult? And it's like, for one of those kits, yes, absolutely, that will be very difficult. But yeah, no, like the kits that are around today, I mean, I'd probably say 50% of the people I meet for the builds are first-time builders, no previous mechanical knowledge. And I won't say it was easy for them, but it wasn't that steep learning curve, and they completed the car within a year and 2 years around work commitments and family and stuff like that. They're not impossible to build now. You don't need to be a trained mechanic to build a modern day kit car. And the manufacturers offer so much more support than some of the previous ones where you would just get a box of bits and you'd have to find a Ford Cortina and then also bits from another car. And yeah, there's very little of that now, which is, I think, as a consumer, a good thing. And yeah, you have to pay a bit more for that, but the car you're driving on the road is safe to drive on the road. And yeah, you're not gonna, you've not spliced a wiring loom and all that sort of stuff together. There are parts, everything's ready, and everything will assemble as it should. You don't have much thinking to do.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we can thank for this, and it does get a little criticism, is the IVA SVA test, which filtered out possibly, I'll choose my words carefully, maybe some of the manufacturers that were at the lower echelons of maybe quality and so on. But I think that's been a big trigger to raise the whole level of the industry and help get it to where it is today.
Oh no, I think the IVAs. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're putting an American V8 or a Honda VTEC K20 engine into a car, personally, as a motorist and also someone that would drive this car, I'd like to know that it meets a minimum safety standard. And the other thing about the IVA, which is quite funny, is the first time someone builds a kit car, they all say how terrified they are of it. You know, they've read the manual 20 times before even ordering a kit. But then actually, once they come around to it, even if they fail the first time, for a lot of people, it's a positive experience because they don't want you to fail. They'll explain why you failed. They'll give you a snag list and they'll explain how to do something better. And a lot of times people will walk away and go, actually, I understand why you said that. I understand why they've said that. It's sort of, yeah, that's something that I've learned from this experience. It's not as negative an experience as people first think it might be.
And also with the way the quality of the kits and the models that are out there now, do you think we're moving to a place where the mainstream sort of shows and media are starting to realize kit cars aren't what they were sort of 20, 25 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we are definitely seeing some of that, and we are seeing kit cars in other publications. Like I remember when Autocar did the LB Stratus replica and stuff like that. I think we're getting there, but the stigma's still there because I really hate it when you pick up an issue of Top Gear or Evo, and they'll say about some specialist car that's just come out and they go, it's got an interior like a kit car, which I just hate that because actually, nowadays, you know, I mean, that's up to you, but I mean, a lot of builders, they don't skimp on these builds. They will, you know, use the best wood, leather, whatever sort of thing. They're not just speedos that are falling out and just really crap fake Alcantara anymore, but the stigma's still there. So we are getting more respect, but I think kit car is still a dirty word to some people. And I do hate it when people build a kit car, but they're not proud of the fact, and they'll say something like, oh, it's not really a kit car though, is it? Meaning, oh, it's a cut above a kit car. But no, the kit car literally means car built from a kit. You know, it's not a standard sort of thing. It is literally a process. I don't know if any other magazines have, you know, any other sort of magazine subject has a similar issue. Like, you know, is Lego an assembly block or is Mega Bloks not? I don't know, but yeah, I find it odd. I find it odd that kit car is still a dirty word with some people, and the stuff's so good now.
And it was interesting when I had a chat with guy we both know, Steve Hull. I just threw the question up into the air, and a bit like a pheasant, he blew it straight out of the sky. I said, "Well, do we need to change the name of the industry? Is it like component cars or something like that?" And he was very much, no, it's kit cars. Yeah. We've just got to let everyone else catch up and understand where the market is, and it's not where it was 20, 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, kit car is the obvious name for it. It's a car from a kit, but like it goes. I mean, we had a little chat before, and basically, like, it's so funny how people that are really into their cars, you know, always like an encyclopedia when it comes to cars. How kit cars are a massive blind spot. Like I've been to parties where mutual friends have sort of said, "Oh yeah, Jack's really into his cars. He works for a magazine." To do with cars, and we'll have a chat, and anything more obscure than a Delta HF Integrale goes right over their heads. But it's rarely a bad conversation. You sort of show. I mean, if you're trying to get someone into cars, it pays to start with something like an Ultima or something like that. But then when you go into it, people are amazed. They go, "Oh wow," and all this, and and people build these themselves, and then it's actually usually a positive conversation. But it's sort of amazing how many people don't know we exist. To say, we've existed for so long, and so many big manufacturers that you can still buy cars from today started here. So,
but the only thing I feel, and it is a difficult because I understand the research and development area of it, is the industry at the moment is so reliant on the replica market, whether it be of the two mainstream or the three mainstreams, Cobras, GT40, and the 7 market,
and also
and
the
then
356.
Sorry.
Also the 356.
Oh yeah, of course, the 356, the Chesil Speedster, mustn't forget that, and other replicas of a similar nature. Apart from things like, off the top of my head, the Exocet, there, and obviously the DJC car. There's so little individuality out there now compared to what there was 20, 25 years ago, and I realise it's probably an easier sell for to sell somebody a Cobra replica factory built for 60 grand compared to an original Cobra, which is astronomical money. That's a reasonable buy. It's getting people to buy into something that's a little bit different. And I think that's quite a difficult sell. But I'd love to see more stuff like that that's a bit unique. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, honestly speaking, I love all the original designs. There's been some, I mean, out of all, if I could own any sort of modern classic kit car, it'd probably be a Dax Kamala or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I understand like what Adam was saying last time. I understand why we do the replicas, because I mean the main thing is it's selling a dream, and these cars are unobtainable by other means. And also we've met people who've had genuine AC Cobras, Shelby Cobras and stuff, and they just daren't drive them. So and then they build a quality Cobra, and actually they're a lot better to drive, because it's the power of engineering hindsight. They're not the same, 100% accurate sort of thing, but in a good way. But I sort of feel like the original design sort of fell by the wayside a bit when stuff like the Mazda MX-5 and the Nissan 350Z and secondhand cars just became so capable and so cheap. But I'm sort of hoping the way the secondhand car market's going now, where just any of those sort of cars are actually unobtainable in a condition that you'd like to use one, that we might see a return of more original sort of kit cars. I don't think we'll ever get back to the sort of kit car that does everything, like in the 80s where you had genuinely practical ones that could replace your family car. And also, I don't think we'd actually want that. I think I'd like them always to be occasional cars, but it would be cool to see a return of more original designs. And I think as the secondhand car market goes a bit crazier, and as these modern classics become more difficult to restore, that there's the potential there for someone to jump back in.
And you've triggered a thought in my mind, which goes back to the Westfield Chesil factory tour that we did, is that the modern buyer of kit cars or turnkey or in kit form want their cars to drive like modern cars. And you mentioned about people with original AC Cobras and stuff like that. They drove like 1950s cars, and it's particularly with what Chesil are doing with the with the Speedster is putting underpinnings under it that aren't a Beetle, because people want to hop into it and expect it to drive like an MX-5 or something like that. They want disc brakes, they want rack and pinion steering, they want double wishbone suspension. So it drives like they expect it to, even though it's wrapped up into a classic package. And maybe this is the great thing that might sort of open the doors more to the mainstream car area for us.
I think it definitely will. I think one thing the kit car industry doesn't get enough credit for, but like to the rest of the sort of automotive sphere, resto modding is a new, exciting thing. But we've sort of done that for years. We've sort of taken old designs, but just push the tech up, push the engineering up, because at the end of the day, for most people, the reason they love these cars is the visuals and the performance. So why not boost the performance and keep the visuals the same sort of thing? But you see like the Singer Porsches and stuff, and magazines write like it's a completely new idea. But when you look at the Gardner Douglas sort of Cobra replicas and stuff, and they've had backbone chassis and all sorts for years. It's to us, it's not a new thing. It's still exciting, but it's not new. I don't think we get enough credit for that, really.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Well, Jack, that's been absolutely fantastic. I think it's brought everybody up to speed about where you've come from, and obviously your enthusiasm and passion for the industry, and how you've ended up with the magazine on your plate. You mentioned about maybe 1 or 2 new things coming up in the future you got in your mind. You talked about having an in-house build. Anything sort of new and exciting you can just give us a little bit of an inside line to that you might be dropping in the magazine soon?
Well, we have hinted quite heavily that we'd like to. I mean, you've seen the cycle carts. That's a new thing I want.
Yeah.
I want the magazine to sort of get behind. Like, obviously, we're primarily a kit car magazine, and we always will be. But we've always had room for specials, and just driving those cars and the interest that the feature I did on that has sort of generated makes me think it's maybe not quite low cost level, but it sort of seems like that might be one of the next big things in car building, home, building cars from home sort of thing. And I think it would be stupid not to get involved with it. And there's so much fun that I'd love to get involved with that anyway. So yes, hopefully that will come up soon.
And watch this space, because we might be involved this end as well, which is why I pulled a little face there. So Jack sort of dragged me in there with that one. So we've got maybe something that we can release between us, hopefully in the near future on that one. So that will come to you soon. Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, no, it's good to get this out there, sort of thing. I was a bit nervous, and I'm sure people could tell I'm not used to the camera, but yeah, I have enjoyed it. But I am also looking forward to putting away.
And you'll be seeing people at all the shows in the future as the same as you've done in the past. So I'm guessing will you be at Autosport in January?
Yeah, we'll definitely be at the NEC Classic in November. I don't know about Autosport, possibly, and possibly Race Retro as well. But yeah, you'll definitely see me around, and and hopefully we'll get out to some more shows next year. Who knows? But it's a bit too early days at the minute. But yeah, we'll definitely be the NEC Classic.
Yeah, you've been moving lots of magazines and sorting out everything else, so you'll get around to the shows when you can.
Yeah, can't wait to move the stock again. But yeah, no, it's going to be good.
Brilliant. So thanks to Jack for taking time out to talk to us like he has, and giving us a full update of where he is with CKC. And hopefully you've enjoyed this video for 7 Spot. And if you have, please do us a big favour and click that subscribe button. It makes so much difference to us here. Until next time, take care.